All right, welcome back, everybody. Thirsty Thursday number 47 tonight. We are honored to be joined by two gentlemen from the HazMat Guys, or they are the HazMat Guys. If you're not sure what that is, you need to go to their website and check them out, thehazmatguys.com, for all of your hazmat needs. So it's going to be a great show tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about, um, that first arriving company. What needs a hazmat response? What do we need to tell them? That kind of stuff, and then kind of the hot topic that's going around everywhere right now, and is a big issue, is the lithium-ion battery stuff, which I know they're both super excited and pumped to talk about. But we're going to do it anyway. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. Oh yeah, lithium-ion.
I want you to know I watched your show, so I know you're fucking with us. So
damn it! I was sitting there just staying.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see how long you go, but
I would have the whole show.
I was just gonna start talking and see what he could do.
Oh my God.
So, also, if you can't tell, this is going to be a lot of fun tonight. So, again, sit back, enjoy. There's going to be a lot of good nuggets coming out. So, take down notes as we go, and if not, you can watch it or listen to it later too. So, with that, we'll kick it over to Mike, to my right, left, whichever, and we'll go from there.
Which Mike?
You, Mike. Michael
me, Mike. Oh,
okay. Yeah, you, Mike.
What am I supposed to say?
Just a little intro about yourself. And
Sure. My name is Michael Monaco. I am a New York City firefighter. I'm in HazMat Company 1. I've been there for too many years now at this point. And I'm also a hazardous materials specialist with the city and teach across the country, as well as the not so better half of the HazMat Guys.
Trevor?
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Really excited about the show tonight. I've been looking forward to it for a while. Before we even start, again, Bobby and Mike Wood want to thank you guys. In addition to Ray McCormick, last week we were out in Wichita, Kansas, teaching hot class out there. Phenomenal, as it always is, but could not have been with a better group of instructors. Again, looking really forward to tonight, and especially we were talking a little bit pre-show about some things and some preconceived notions, some conceptions, everything else. I'm really looking forward to Mike Monaco and Salvo taking us to school on some of these things, because I know pre-show Mike had said, hey, I'm going to push back on a couple of things. I look forward to that, because this is all about the learning experience. Collectively, we don't have the reps and sets. These guys are doing it on a much more regular basis. They have the freshest data. Most of what we're getting is kind of stale. So with that being said, I really, really look forward to the information that's going to come out of tonight's show. And Ben, I don't know what your rotation is going to be, so I'm going to shut up now and you tell the next person to talk.
We're gonna kick it down to Cuddles.
That's his prison name. Easy.
Well, welcome everybody. Bobby McGee, Lieutenant, New City Fire Department. Been around for a couple of years myself. And I think that the Salvo guy looks really like a really good conservative talk show host to me right now with the gear he's got on. So look forward to hearing what he has to say. And I'll turn it over. Salvo, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Mike last. Baltimore's always last. You know what I mean?
That's terrible. I'm Bobby Salison. I'm the other half of the HazMat Guys. I did 25 years in New York City Fire Department. Final assignment was in HazMat 1. I was in Squad 288 for 10, 12 years or something like that before that. And I don't know. We try to make the you don't know if it's a comedy show or a hazmat show. So we try to play both.
It's like chemistry and fart jokes.
Yeah. Right. It always works. They always work for some reason.
All right, Mike Wood, go ahead.
All right, guys. I'm going to throw out a thank you to Bobby and Trevor for an awesome time out in Wichita. And then thanks for being here to Mike and Salvo. And I can see that Salvo's got you got a lot to go through tonight.
I just kicked this morning, and so we're going to get going.
Yeah, I like it, man. You're prepping. I'm interested. I can't wait to hear a lot of this. It is something that usually gets put on the back burner. I know it's that way a lot up the road in Baltimore, and it's something that we definitely need to delve into a lot deeper down here in Ocean City. I like the down and dirty, man. So I'm without further delay, let's get these glowworms talking.
Sounds good. One of the things that we kind of, I think, to start is, in the places that we work, with the exception of Michael, whichever, below Trevor, we don't have a dedicated HazMat company to respond on in our department. So I think, what are kind of some of the criteria and things to say, oh shit, this is bigger than what we were anticipating, or this is, way beyond our scope, and like, what are the criteria to start a hazardous materials response?
Mike, can I do this one?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob. All yours.
All right.
Let me translate for Ben first. He said, when we don't know what the hell we're doing, what do we do?
Yeah, this is the funny thing, because
Make shit up.
It's unique. New York City is a little unique. We have so many freaking guys. We have 11,800 guys. So when we say we have one hazmat company for the city, it blows a lot of people's mind. Like, how do you have only one company? So we have 2 rigs with 8 guys, right? And 4 of them must be specialists. Now, when you say, all right, well, what is a specialist? In normal parlance, depending on where you are in the country, technician level is, let's say, 120 hours, could be 80 hours. In some extreme cases, it's like 160 hours. And then even in places that are like regarded as a lot, like California, that's an additional 80 hours. I sat down with pencil and paper and I figured out all the classes that we're responsible to do, all the sign-offs, all the training, all the stuff, and we are about plus 3,000 hours. So, like, our running joke is you have to work really hard to suck, because that's all we do. Like, we don't do hydrants, we don't do building inspections, we don't have alarms. The only time we go out is when the battalion or the chief special calls us in. So we only seen the craziest crap that's on the street. And so when you ask the question of, like, how do you know you can handle it? When you come into special operations school, and this is not like, a pat on the back or anything, but they tell you, they're like, nothing's too heavy, hard, high, hard, like nothing. They're like, there's nobody coming after you. Like, we have a mutual aid agreement. I have never seen somebody come into New York City to handle one of our jobs other than 9/11. Never. So they don't want to hear hazmat can't handle it, or rescue or squad can't handle it. They're like, just make it go away.
Right. Figure it out.
But that's it.
I think from an engine point of view, are you referring to also that first 2 companies sitting there going, holy crap, do I need hazmat?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if the thoughts go through your mind where you're like, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing, which is a totally like honest thing to go through your mind, you should be calling in a hazmat company. Even if it turns out 10 minutes later, you were just having a brain fart, your brain cells connected, and you were like, oh, I can just do this. At least get them on the road, get them rolling. Because it doesn't mean that they have to show up, but you have access to them. You'll get to talk to them. And this is in, at least in New York City, but everywhere I go is the same. The guys in the hazmat are always ready to make contact with the people on scene before they even get there. They're always ready to figure out what's going on, and they always want to be turned around before they get there. So they're more than
and if you're on overtime, they can slow the operation down.
So we
don't make your overtime, but we make your overtime a lot longer.
Right. So standard operating procedure then would be, if we arrive on scene and our size up is, holy crap, we don't know what we're doing, this should be a hazmat. I feel like almost every call needs to be a hazmat. That's probably the...
Explain, because when you say that, are you coming from the point of view of thinking about rolling up on a hazmat scene, or are you saying that from the point of view of literally every call?
Right.
Yeah.
Depending on your jurisdiction, it could be every single call.
Well, then
No,
yeah.
What I'll tell you, one of the big things, of course, we get up the road is you get into these old warehouses, and so we have these different multi-occupancy storefronts and things like that. Much like you guys have them littered all over FDNY. But they go through that transitional phase where 1 week it's this, 1 week it's that. They change their storefronts like we change underwear, and some of us, and you don't know what gets left behind. You don't know what gets stored upstairs, what gets stored downstairs, and you arrive and you kind of size up what's happening there, and we could see a variety of different things occurring. What would be some, in your guys' minds, one of the big things I'm curious of, what are some tells? What are some common tells that you would consider like dead giveaways for you guys need to be thinking along the terms of HazMat for this?
So there's a correlation between HazMat responses, like I need the HazMat, and training. Right? And I hate to say it this way, but like if you you train your engines and trucks to be better, then HazMat responses go down because they're able to handle more stuff. And they are only turning out the HazMat company or getting that response in truly exceptional things. Like, I'll give you a quick example: is that there was a weird one, right? This was, and I highly recommend. We did a whole show on this, Mike, about the coffee place. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Right. Truck company goes to this coffee roaster in Hipsterville, which is in our area. It's Bushwick, which is literally where they invented crack. It's like seriously. That's the birthplace of crack. So anyway, there's a hipster roaster there, and he's making beans. And the truck company goes in there, and they get like 100, 150, 200. And they're like, what the hell? So they do shut off the things. They vent at the place. They bring in the second meter, 100, 150, 200. HazMat comes in with 7 meters, 100, 150, 200. Okay, that's beyond training. That's a little bit of a weird one. But if they're able to say, I can figure this out on my own, then you don't have the HazMat runs. So training at the lower levels is going to be a much bigger impact, and saying, no, it's not an option. You are going to learn this stuff. And I know it's not the sexiest thing in the world, and I hate saying that, but if it's not the sexiest thing in the world, get better instructors. You see how everything kind of plays off each other? It comes down to, like, honestly, it comes down to the instructors, is my mind.
Yeah.
No, and Salvo. No, good, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, and then you could also look at things from the point of view of very strictly by the law, by the regulations, and by the book, right? So we have trained our firefighters up to the operations level point of view. If you don't have operations mission specific and you think you have something in the air, you call HazMat. If there's product that needs to be dealt with, well, firefighters are not supposed to be coming in contact with product. That's mitigation. That is an offensive technique. Firefighters are really strictly defensive, with the exception of life safety. So in sitting there and working, should I call HazMat? Shouldn't I? The ultimate, you have to call HazMat is if anybody is going to become intimate with the product. If you're going to become intimate with the product in any way, shape, or form, it's a job for a technician.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And a lot of times, I think as firefighters, company level officers, we move at the speed of two things: instruction and experience, or actually three things: instruction, experience, and comfort zone. So, if maybe somebody is a HazMat ops, maybe even a HazMat tech, they have a different perception of what may need to be done going forward. And like you guys are saying too, from a firefighting aspect, we're balls to the wall, whereas from HazMat, we're more analytical. It's it's slow as smooth and smooth as fast. I mean, it's going to be a slower process versus just stretching a line, going at it. We're trying to assess things. And Mike, if you don't mind, I want to kind of delve into it a little bit. Well, and I'll throw the question out there that was given to me this morning. One of my shift commanders is like, hey, and they look with all these EVs and hoverboards and electric bikes and X, Y, and Z. What would you think of this? If if we had an EV in a garage, it's going to take, might take us more water. And this is spurred on by some of the issues we're having on the west coast of Florida from the flooding in the wake of Hurricane Ian. And he said, would it be improper for me to, if I'm fighting a EV fire in a garage, to think about latching onto that thing with a winch and pulling it out there, so I'm just fighting a vehicle fire, not a repetitive house fire and a vehicle fire? I'm like, actually, it's not a bad idea, but I'm just thinking it through. It's like, if it's safe and it seemed common sense, maybe, but that's something that I've never dealt with in my 35 years. Where, and Mike, you had a perception of this because you guys have the reps and sets. You're seeing this through a completely different lens, and that's why you're here. So, I don't want you to be the man. I want you to be the bus driver and take the man. Go for it.
Okay. All right. So what I actually was pushing back on, what you didn't say in the summary was, we're using tons of water to put this fire out. And that was the line I was going to push back on, because and we can look at this from a whole bunch of points of view, but I really feel like at this point I need to be dressed up in like a Disney Elsa costume, running around going, let it burn, because that's ultimately what my viewpoint is let it burn. And I agree with everything you said, with the exception of we're putting the fire out. We are not putting the fire out. Nobody has ever put out a EV battery fire. It's not happening.
So to give you a dated reference, this is kind of like going back to the magnesium engine blocks of the Volkswagens that, it runs out of fuel. You think you're doing a good job, but at the end of the day, it's going to go out no matter whether or not we show up. It's just a matter of time.
So give it the time. So I agree with you 100%, right? So, and we look at this from everything we do in HazMat, we look at from a risk versus reward, right? What are we willing to give? What are we willing to sacrifice? And ultimately, what's the benefit? And some of these things may not be a risk for your community, but we're talking about across the country. And so I can try to speak for multiple different places. What is my risk? What is my reward? Well, let's talk about putting quote unquote putting a fire out of an EV car. As long as I have no exposures, right? So as long as I have nothing else that I am particularly worried about. So as an incident commander, I may have to say, I'm going to sacrifice the garage to protect the house, right? And we have to be okay with that. Once exposures are taken care of, what are we gaining by putting out the fire? Or trying to put out the fire, right? Because we're not actually putting out the fire. These batteries are going to burn in the presence of water, not in the presence of water. The only thing that we are actually doing is slowing down the propagation of heat from one battery cell to another. And if we're slowing down the propagation of heat from one battery cell to another, in the end, we haven't accomplished anything. The only thing we have done is wasted a tremendous amount of water and a tremendous amount of resources to watch a car smolder, instead of spending a few seconds stepping back, protecting our exposures, and watching a car burn. Because a EV car will burn within 15 minutes to 45 minutes to completion. Whereas if I'm going to put water on it, all I'm doing is making that chemical reaction delete, and it's taking me 5, 10, 15, sometimes 24 hours of pouring water on it before we have, put the fire out, which we haven't actually done. So that's my point of view. Yes, I agree with everything that you said before the show. The thing I didn't agree with is saying we're putting the fire out, because we're not putting the fire out. I haven't ever put out a battery fire.
Mike, you're making way too much sense.
Can I add something in there? It's like when we were, before I retired, which is only like 2 months ago, we were having a conversation with the chiefs and all this other stuff, and it was like, all right, what are we doing about these fires? And the idea is, if you, like Mike said, if you put water on these things, you're slowing the propagation, you're not stopping it. And so let's say company one pulls up and they are throwing water on this car. All they're doing is slowing it down, and they're going to be there for a long time. So people are like, all right, why don't we get a pickup truck with a little pump that'll come in and it'll replace it, because we can't put an engine company out of service for 24 hours just throwing water. Okay, that makes sense. You can't have all those guys sitting there. Let's get them back in service. We'll put the pickup truck there, and they can just lob it from the hydrant, and the guy can play, crosswords on his phone or whatever the hell it is. Then it came down, is there a better way? Well, the better way is to let it burn so that the water actually goes in the battery. Well, how long does that take? It takes 10, 15, 20 minutes for you actually to grate a hole in the battery compartment so the water actually goes in it. Okay, that sounds great. Why don't we just do that? I said, do you guys have any idea about the PR perception of that at this point? Because now you have an engine company that's going to be pulling up to a car fire and saying, let me wait 10 minutes. And then there's company one on TikTok or the Insta Snap or the Snapify, whatever the hell the kids have today, right? Your company one's all over it, representing the New York City Fire Department, and they're just standing there with their hands in their pockets while this car burns. Why do we pay taxes? What do we do? What are these guys standing there doing? There's a tactic there. And the thing is that either do it or don't do it. And what we're seeing is 200 years of tradition unimpeded by progress. We're seeing fire chiefs that are smashing square pegs into round holes. They're trying to apply fire tactics and outcomes to hazmat incidents, and it does not work. You either have to have a new book and a new mindset, or leave it to somebody else that has the idea.
And in fairness, Salvo, that was part of the Chiefs test. I mean, if you got a square peg in a round hole, they gave you a white helmet and sprinkled some fairy dust
and
on it.
A bigger hammer, man. Yeah, that was the biggest thing. Is like, well, why don't we just put it out? I understand it, but it's not going to work here.
Yeah, and I think you're 110% correct, because sometimes it's coming down to optics. And I hate politics with a passion, and it's one of those things. It reminds you the Norman Rockwell lithograph with the pipe man with the big underwriter's play pipe putting out the fire. It looks great, but sometimes you're just pissing on something just to make it look good. And that not saying that that's our focus and our goal, but we have to realize too that when we're committing our firefighters to fighting these fires, there's an inherent risk. We don't know what's going to explode, what's going to happen, and we're putting them in the front line. So, I think we have to be very cautious and to your point, and be realistic. And I'd much rather explain to a citizen, news journalist, a mayor, a commissioner, whomever, why we employed a certain tactic versus arbitrarily, employ our people to go out there, put themselves at risk for something that they know is just going to run out of fuel. And I mean, to your guys' point, I think that we need to worry less about optics and more about strategy and tactics that are going to have a positive outcome. Not for the newspaper or our report at the end of the day, but for the incident.
Right, and there is a. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say there's risk that needs to be assessed that a lot of people are not thinking about. Water, the amount of water that we use. There are some parts of this country that fresh water is a risk. You go to the area that I'm in right now in California, their town can't afford 30,000 gallons of water to put on a car fire. It's just not accessible. And then you have the toxic stuff that's coming off of these cars. Within the first couple of minutes of a car fire or a battery going, so we're on the same page as this, right? You have a fire that starts at a single battery and it spreads. So when I say the first few seconds of a fire, I'm talking about every time a new cell ignites, it's giving off some seriously toxic volatile organic chemicals as well as hydrofluoric acid gas. All right, so there's HF coming off on this. If I were to just let it burn, a lot of my smoke and products are hot and they're going straight up in the air. Think about when we actually fight a car fire. If we're wearing our masks, the moment we actually hit the water on the fire, we start to cool off that smoke and everything banks down for a little while. So if I'm not fully masked, and I'm not talking about just the person fighting the fire, but think of the whole scene, how sometimes that smoke banks down at a car fire. Yeah, the guys on the line might be wearing their mask, but your command post isn't wearing their mask. The first two truck isn't wearing their mask. The other companies are not wearing their mask. And we're not allowing that smoke to just go ahead and vent and get away from us as quickly as possible. That is containing massive amounts of volatile organic compounds, POF3s, phosphates, and your hydrogen fluoride. So letting it burn also gives you the ability to have those gases escape in a column straight up versus knocking that smoke down to ground level.
I had a question for you guys.
Go.
And I'm learning stuff already. This is kind of cool. But what are some of the things we can do when people are at risk? So it's a two-part question. So if there's a fire and there's other people at risk, say a parking under a building is occupied or some of those things. And the second part of the question, or people trapped in cars adjacent to it or whatever. What is there anything we can do to control it for the time to get people out? And the second question is, I heard that they have a problem where the wheels generate energy. And so if they're damaged and not burning, if you move it, it can create a fire. So just if you can walk through some of the things about it, if people are at risk, what are some of the things that we should or shouldn't do when we come up on these EV vehicle fires?
So when it comes to life risk, like everything else that we do in HazMat, risk versus reward. And we need to then take everything that we talked about and literally just throw it out the window, right? Because all the stuff that we talk about when we talk about this, we're literally looking at the idea that life has already been established, right? That there is no more life risk, and we're here to protect the environment and the property. So the moment life comes into play, that risk reward analysis now tips towards risk, where I would say before, what is my reward for putting out a car fire? Nothing, because the car is destroyed. It's going to be totaled. The insurance company is writing the whole thing off. I haven't saved anything. I put that fire out. It lights up again in a junkyard later. Now I've risked a fire somewhere else. That car lights up on the back of a tow truck, and now I've created a hazard somewhere else. So those are my risks. But the moment life becomes involved, or the massive destruction of property, everything goes out the window. And yes, we have to address the major hazard first. If you've got life involved, put the fire out. Put the fire out, keep it at bay until the life hazard is assessed, and we're good to go. And then we can continue our operation from there. So you talk about a parking garage. Man, that's going to be a really, really, really shitty day. You got to get that car out of a parking garage. You got to start having community awareness where places are not allowing EV cars to charge in the basement of parking garages anymore. But This is where the community outreach of the fire department starts to come into play. This is where your chiefs of department or your union leaders have to start making contact with your city council or your governing bodies and be like, this is a serious problem. It needs to be addressed right now. We cannot allow, for example, EV cars to charge inside a parking garage. Maybe up top floor, good to go. Hey, great. Whatever you guys want to decide, that's fine. But these are the steps that we have to take now. If we have a fire in there, put the fire out, get it out, and then when it reignites, let it keep going.
So, Mike, let me ask you this, and I'm trying to equate this in my simple mind, almost to like a marina fire. Sometimes if we have a big sport fisher, a motor yacht, whatever else is off, sometimes it's more beneficial for us to remove the hazard from the scene than to fight the hazard on the scene. So are you kind of saying that we do like an initial knockdown, and if we can move it, say on a flatbed or whatever, and take it to a safe place and dump the damn thing off in a empty parking lot somewhere, and if it reignites, then we can take care of it without any exposure? Is that a reasonable tactic, or what do you recommend? I know it's based on kind of the circumstances, but what are your thoughts on that?
It depends.
I knew you were going to say
that. Thank you for clarifying that, sir.
No problem. Clear as mud, mofo. Clear as mud. No, it does. It depends, right? You have to, and this is the difficult part that technicians face when they come up against fire department questions, because fire department, they want clear-cut answers, right?
If
that's why that if this, then that. That's why this "it depends" drives people absolutely insane. incident commanders want to just rip my head off when I'm like, it depends. But it really does depend, because you need to have that full all hazard awareness to be able to make your risk-based analysis. And you need to take the steps that are available to you, available to your community, available to your department, which everybody is different. Everyone has different resources. Everyone has different manpower. Everyone has different needs. Everyone has access to different things. You need to be able to know what your capabilities are and then act accordingly. Is it possible to tow away a vehicle to a safe spot? I don't know. Do you have a tow truck operator willing to take something that's going to spontaneously combust on his rig?
You can even add in the DOT. So if you go into 49 DOT, which is a book that's about yay big, that has a lot to say about transporting hazardous materials. Now, it also says if you ever get your haunches up and you want to put it into the bathroom or something like that, and really nestle in and read the first section, it gives an exemption for emergency responders. Now, that sounds amazing. Oh shit, we got our own niche. We can just do what we want. Not really. There are some parameters where you must be between, because now you can't go to, let's say, an overturned tractor trailer or a saddle tank that's leaking and take the fuel back to the firehouse. You're not certified to transport fuels. So there is not only the SOP problem and the perception problem and the reality problem, but now there comes legality problem. Like if you're the incident commander of that and you say, yeah, we're going to put this on a flatbed, and someone goes, you can't do that, it's illegal. Are you going to be like, dude, you see my front piece? They're going to be like, I don't give a shit about your front piece. I can't put that on the road because somebody's going to lock me up.
Right.
You know, so
or it does light up. Who's paying for my truck?
Yeah, and these things, just for perspective, these cells go off at about anywhere from, let's call it 1500 Celsius. We talk about like when steel softens and elongates and stuff like that. Steel liquefies and turns to a liquid at 2100 C. So we're talking about, it doesn't just liquefy, it doesn't just soften. I'm talking you turn it into a puddle. So we're talking that these cells have the potential of melting the truck.
Yeah, and they melt battery cases all the time. We show up on scene and we can see where the cells that have blowtorched are, because the metal battery compartment is gone. Now, granted, it's usually aluminum, right? And I could take aluminum away with a lighter in enough time, but still, that's a significant amount of energy being released all at once.
You know, we're seeing. I remember one of the last fires I saw was it was a 4-story walk up, and the guy was repairing batteries for like bikes. So he would buy Mike's battery that had 4 cells that were bad. He would take Bobby's battery that had 17 cells that were bad. He would unsolder them, resolder them together, and he would sell them on the side of the street for $150. And he was a hero. And he had thousands of cells in there. And I saw, if I'm telling you the story because it's almost unbelievable, is that it was such a hot fire that the windows melted and they fell into the room, plastic on the ceiling. And I've seen fires that were extraordinarily hot, but the difference is when you went and pulled the ceilings and you pulled the walls, it was just the paper of the sheetrock. The sheetrock wasn't exposed and nothing behind it. So it was such an incredibly hot fire for an incredibly short duration that it incinerated the entire room and gave the guy 4th-degree burns. I'm talking bone burns in his, because he was in the room, but no fire past the sheetrock. So these fires are unique. They are unicorns, and they're becoming much, much more prevalent with just statistics. And also, Amazon had scooters on sale. So get your scooter for cheap.
Yeah, you get your scooter and then you go back to YouTube.
Yeah,
batteries.
So. I'm like, fireworks coming in, baby. Let's go.
Since we've kind of already started the transition from electric cars, let's talk about the mobility devices that I think are real. I don't think I know are very common in New York City. as far as the scooters, the one wheels, all that kind of stuff. Something that in our travels, in our family life, we were going to pick up my sister-in-law at College Park in Maryland, and those kind of things I think are going to be incredibly common if they aren't already on college campuses, because you don't need a car necessarily to drive around College Park. You can hop on a scooter, hop on a one wheel, hop on a whatever, and get to where you need. It's easier. You don't have to worry about parking. But what about responses for those? And what are you guys seeing as far as handling that?
I was just talking to a friend of ours last night, and he is the on the HazMat team at a incredibly large United States university, very, very prestigious. And he says that the PhDs that are doing like research are parking and charging their e-bikes and their scooters and their personal devices in the Flam lab.
Holy shit.
I'm like, he's like, no, we can't do that. They're like, we're PhDs. He's like, I don't give a shit if you're God. Get that crap.
Yeah.
Like, you're not stopping this fire from coming out. And when it comes, there's no timeouts and there's no do-overs. When it comes,
I will
it's
stop
coming.
it with my doctorate.
Yeah. Just there you go. No,
yeah,
it doesn't work.
Yeah,
but it's an evolving thing. Like, I think, and again, this is just the personal thing, is I don't see, you got everything from the big stuff, like the installations, like buildings, like entire floors of thing, and people are panic about that. I'm not panic about that. When those things get installed there's a million eyes that see the plans. They overthink it. They think it again. They talk to other outside consultants. Nothing's happening. Teslas, yeah, you got the idiot factor. Once it leaves the factory, you got guys that are jumping curbs and crashing into walls with Teslas. You can't prevent that. But it's engineered well. You got Makitas, DeWalt's, Rigid, all these power tools. You don't see it with that because it's quality. Where you're seeing it is on e-bikes, hoverboards, and that kind of stuff, because first off, people beat the crap out of them. And second off, it's bought at the lowest possible number. Your kid buys a freaking e-bike and he breaks the battery and he says, oh, I need a new battery. Well, I could buy the factory one for $600, or I could buy this one off of eBay for $40. What is he going to buy? He's going to buy the $40 one. And that doesn't come with overload protection, doesn't come with any digital type of circuitry or anything like that. It's just basically hot rodded right into the battery pack. And then when it overcharged or whatever the hell it is, you're looking at a fire. And that is not a question. That's not even like you don't know that. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's
true.
That those batteries making the constant shake and the impact, the way these things are designed, imagine taking extraordinarily volatile chemicals and separating them with tissue paper and then rolling them up really tight and then just putting them together in a container and shaking them around, right?
Yeah.
We often say that babies and batteries are alike. If you shake them enough, they stop working. So you have to be so careful with all of the chemistry that's in there. Bob's the only one laughing. These guys don't like baby jokes.
I'm looking around. Like, who's laughing at that one? I think that's funny. I think that's a good one.
So, you start to wear away the insides of these with mechanical, and then you add on the electrical component to it as well. Even a well-made battery, to Bob's point, they're not seeing well-made batteries, they're seeing shit batteries. And then on top of that, what they're using to charge the batteries with are not the computer-assisted things, the battery management systems that should be being used for these. A good battery management system is going to put a temperature probe on every single battery. It's going to monitor every single battery. It's going to balance the charging on every single battery so that no battery charges or undercharges at different rates. They all do it together. Right. Because if you have a battery that's charged here and a battery that's charged here, if you don't have a good battery management system, by the time this one fills up, this one still needs to fill, and now you're going to overcharge to get this one filled. That is electrical abuse to the battery. It's going to cause failure. So you start to add all these little things together. It's not just the shitty batteries. It's also the shitty batteries with the shitty chargers with the shitty abuse. And now we're starting to see, there was a big push during COVID for people to get these transportation things. And now we're starting to see a year or two later, the chargers are no good. They're starting to fail. The batteries have been abused. They're starting to fail. So we are exactly where we should be in that time curve for things failing.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. I mean, because a lot of these devices are for an individual use per se, what are you guys seeing as the prevalence of, when people charge these devices, they're putting them in private dwellings, multifamily dwellings. We had one probably about 6 weeks ago where somebody had a scooter inside their apartment building next to a baby crib because that's where the outlet was, and they don't want anyone to steal their shit. So what's the prevalence of private dwelling fires, multiple family dwelling fires that are resulting out of people charging these things? I mean, is that something that we should consider as part of our response?
We're lucky in New York City that there's just a tremendous amount of area in real estate. So these houses and apartments are huge. And a fire in one area doesn't have any effect anywhere in the other part of the apartment. I'm being totally sarcastic.
I was going to say, like, what planet
they are teeny, itty bitty little spaces for, $3,000 a month. You're getting a bathroom size apartment, and they're putting these things in there where we are seeing, right? If you think about just what they're designed to be, yes, we get mobility devices that burst into flames while they're in use. It happens, right? Usually the guy ditches his battery and runs, or they ditch the scooter and they run. But they're few and far between compared to the things that are going off inside dwellings. They're going off inside of dwellings. They're going off while they're being charged.
You get the delivery guy that's going to do one more delivery, and he says, all right, give it to me. I'll take it on the way home. So he swaps out his battery, puts the battery on charge into place. They close the roll down, and he takes off, and then the battery goes on fire, and you have a fire in a taxpayer or a mercantile, and you're like, what happened? It was the battery again. Like, so, and these batteries are not small. Like I know in Baltimore, you guys got like the Lime and those type of scooters. We got Revel, right? REVL. And so one day we were driving the rigs around the city and we saw the Revel truck out. We're like, holy shit, let's stop this guy. So we pull him over and we get out and we're like, hey, show us the back. He's like, am I in trouble? No, just show us the back. He opens the back and it's got like an A-frame, like a granite countertop type A-frame kind of thing. And he pulls this rack out and he's got like 60 motorcycle batteries on this rack. And all he does is he drives around and he swaps them out all day, right? So he swaps these things out. And so there's 60 batteries on this vehicle. And we're like, holy crap, it's a lot. And he goes, I said, so what do you do when you're done? He's like, well, I drive to the Bronx and I pull into this warehouse and I plug it in. There's 4 shore powers on the side of this thing. And we just plug in the thing. And then the next morning we come back because they're all charged and we go out and do it again. How many trucks are in this place? There's probably like 60 or 70 of them. This is a non-marked, indiscriminate warehouse in the middle of the Bronx that has 60 vehicles with 60 batteries. You pull up on that thing, it's not even going to be a fire. It's going to be a Roman candle. Like it's going to be like your magnesium fire. You said it's going to be off the charts hot. And what are you going to do? Like, what is what are you thinking about? So like a lot of these things that we're talking about right now should start off as conversations around the kitchen table saying, what are we doing if the Bronx happens? Like I just said, what is your plan? Are you staging 2 blocks away? Are we getting, unique water sources on every available engine? Are we going to relay? Is that even a possibility? Are we doing roof ops? All these things should be played in because it is not a question if. It is happening. It's going to come. Cheers.
Wow. Just wow. First of all, Mike, I really appreciate your example of how the battery shakes. That was pretty good. And
thank you.
Speaks well for you.
No.
So we had heard a little bit about that New York is actually running maybe 2 or 3 of these fires a day. with these chargeable scooters and things. And all I could picture was the New York Dutch oven or otherwise a tenement block hallway. Are these things like stacked in these hallways in your tenements and stuff, or is that what they're doing when they're charging them up?
They're generally not in the hallway, because if you put it in the hallway, they're going to be stolen. So they're actually inside the apartment 9 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times. They are either, 50% of the time, they're going to be in front of the door. So their only means of egress for the apartment, minus the window, is now on fire. Or it's right next to the bed, just because that's the only other spot, under the bed, in the bedroom, being charged with the other 7 mobility devices they have, plus your cell phone, all off of a power cord, because there's one outlet in the room. That power cord is also charging the TV, the computer, the laptop, and all the other electronics. So right there, you may not realize it, but right there, you have a massive problem, because the voltage for these things to be charged needs to be almost exact and almost constant. And even with a decent battery management system, if you don't have the proper voltage going to the system, that voltage can't be stepped down properly. That step down can't be given to the batteries the right way, and you end up with electronic abuse. So even with all the other stuff that we're saying, there's a lot of other factors going on.
So what you're saying is Salvo retired because he didn't be part of a losing team?
I don't want to be dealing with that stuff. That stuff happens all the time. I'm not running for that crap. That's true. That is true. Truest thing we said all night.
So I think one of the things that we kind of touched on a little bit at the beginning was a good PR thing from the departments. What are some things that we could take away and maybe add into that, as far as if you're going to charge it, make sure it's like your fridge, you plug it directly into the wall. You don't do it in a means of egress. You don't do it in your home, period. What are some of the things that we should really think about as far as the charging of those?
Well,
the best practices.
The first thing you need to do is realize that all of these, everything you're going to do is going to land on deaf ears, depending on if you're in a blue state or a red state. Because believe it or not, now politics is starting to play a role. And we're seeing this, I believe, my personal opinion, we're seeing this play out in New York City, where nobody actually wants to talk about it, because lithium-ion batteries are supposed to be the salvation of the future. So we have so NYCHA, which is the organization that covers public housing.
New York City Housing Authority.
The New York City Housing Authority. It took them almost a full year to ban scooters going into apartment buildings. And even then, there was pushback from the restaurant community, and there was a ban placed on the ban until it got to the point that they didn't have a choice. And even then, there's nobody actually, enforcing the regulation, right? It's very difficult for a public service announcement to be made outside of the fire department turning around saying, hey, don't do this. But, the fire department in the past has done phenomenal jobs of fire prevention outreach. So I know in New York, October is a very big fire prevention month, not just in the city, but in the statewide. So this really needs to become part of a fire prevention message as well, right? We burn the Christmas, my local fire department burns the Christmas trees, and they light the oven on fire, and they show, don't put water on an oil fire and all that stuff. Well, it's time to start adding the message of these lithium-ion batteries and the dangers of these lithium-ion batteries. That's the community outreach that the fire department needs to be doing.
And Mike, that I think that's kind of amazing too, because most of us, because we're very operationally minded, don't even think about the legislative or political point behind that. And I think that's very important to understand too, because if it doesn't fit a certain narrative, it might not be popular. But that's the calls that well, not me, but that you guys are dealing with day in and day out. And have you found an effective way to get that message across, or is it just keep hammering away at it and hopefully it resonates with somebody? What's your thought?
Low man totem pole. I can't do anything. I'm a firefighter. I've got no political sway in my department in any way, shape, or form. Nevertheless, my city.
Indirectly, we can because we have a podcast, but
Yeah, we're doing this.
we do
And
this
I-
kind of stuff.
And I get that, but where I guess where I'm coming from is the wisdom's in the trenches, because the further you're separated from being in the trenches and seeing it day to day, you can be part of being a talking head, but if it's not really factual, then you're part of the problem and not part of the solution. So, do you see anything from the boots on the ground level that can be done to get this message out there?
What we're doing now is just talking about it, being at conferences, spreading the word to the people who are not in the trenches, which are the ones that generally attend the conferences, and making them aware that it's out there. And the awareness on the department level is spiking. I mean, I can't even tell you, Bob, in the past 2 months, how many requests have we had for our battery class?
Insane.
Insane.
Like, we have like 1 or 2 a week for the next like 4 months.
And
to go to company, San Diego, Boston, wherever it is, that like come in here and show us how to do this stuff, because like just spit it at us, because we have to get in front of this.
And they're listening in those classes. We're
Yeah.
seeing fire marshals, chiefs of department, commissioners of department. So like they are actively listening once you're like, hey, this is a problem. Once the numbers overwhelm them, and once they are aware of the situation, they are listening. Once it gets past chief of department and you start talking about, city, local, municipal politics, I have no answer for that. That's beyond my paycheck. But the departments are listening.
You know what? I'm gonna turn it a little sideways, if you guys don't mind, because I am honestly shocked that you guys maybe haven't gotten around to asking us yet. But like, how do you handle these things? And so that is like the question of the ages, because as things come out and as things are happening, the evolution of what we're doing is changing almost on a daily basis. And anybody, I want to say this very plainly to everybody that's listening, is anybody that says they know what's going on, they're all full of shit. Everybody, we are building the plane as we fly it. As I say all the time, it is an evolving thing on a daily basis. So like when you're going to that multiple dwelling, that apartment fire, and you're going to be putting out an battery fire, be prepared for like the first 10 minutes of platoon. It is going to be the worst fire you've ever been to, because these things are not even in the same realm. When you tell people, hey, listen, I crawl down hallways and it's 800, 1,000 degrees. And then they're like, oh, that's cool. And you're like, your oven in your kitchen maxes out at 500. And it puts it in perspective, like, holy crap, that's hot. And then you say, I go down a hallway, or I'm trying to go down a hallway with a 2.5, with 1.25 inches, and you're doing it at 1,500 C. You're talking about 2,000 degrees. Be prepared for the worst day of your career, because this can melt aluminum to the ground. This can melt cinder block. I'm telling you, things that you assume can't go on fire will go on fire. And so the common thing is, okay, we get into this fire and we have all these batteries. What are we doing with this? Right, Mike? All the times, fire companies in New York City, everywhere, they're like, what do you do with this? And the honest answer, this is my personal thing, is fill up the bathtub, put them in the water. Because I have 1 million gallons of water. I can just call for water and it's there. But there's other products that are out there, and I'm still not totally sold on it personally. That I kind of feel it's a little bit of snake oil, but it has application. Is that there's products out there that may be able to make it a little lighter or give you a couple of benefits, but water everywhere. And so as long as the guys know that if you're in a bathroom and it's 8 by 8, and you're putting these batteries in there, they are giving off hydrogen, and hydrogen in a small space is explosive. And so ventilation is a concern. So if they just go, okay, I understand this is happening, let's put the fog up, let's move some air around in here while these things are moving, that's cool, because that's not the end game. We're going to have to pick them up. We're going to have to get them out of the water, get them down to 70 floors or whatever the hell it is, and you're going to have to put them out in the street. And so what's your plan on that? And that's a story that's much longer than this podcast can go, because that is a story we can spend freaking hours on, just how to handle the fires. It's a good.
And I think there's some key operations stuff. What Bob was definitely getting at was that this is a multi-step operation, right? There is no you do this and everything is fine.
Yeah,
you have your initial companies that need to first recognize that there's a battery present in the room. Even if the battery wasn't involved, right? You need to make sure that there's no batteries there. And if the batteries are present, you need to get them out of your way, all while never taking off your SCBA, because there's not enough time in this operation to realize the batteries are going to go bad and put your SCBA on and be fine. So even during the initial search phases, if we find batteries, that needs to be addressed. When the fire goes out, before those guys start ripping the room apart, we need to address any batteries that might be on the ground, because the last thing we want to do is overhaul a room that now has batteries at the bottom. You're going to see rekindle after rekindle after rekindle.
And even the, like, oh, well, I have a 4-gas meter. And you said hydrogen. So hydrogen is the Hindenburg that's flammable. Okay, so my meter will go off. Not always. And that's, again, more than we have time for here. But that your 4-gas meter will read it, not correctly, and it will come up on the carbon monoxide channel, and it might not come up on the flammable channel. And so that's going to confuse this crap out of the guys in the engines and trucks. They're like, wait a second, you told me that this is supposed to work when it's flammable. Kind of. So some retraining is going to have to be done at the basic level to prepare these guys for this evolving scenario.
So I got one question for you. I know we're getting late. So I assume that if this battery has lit off in a scooter, that if it's already lit off, we're not going to actually have the battery fire. We're going to have the structure fire afterwards because they burn off so quickly. So my question is, so is now the odor of smoke, the electrical odor, does that raise that call to like another level of awareness for us that as our people are going through there, we always kind of, at least here we fight back about being ready, but they're often treated as a nuisance call. And so how would she handle, should we think differently about odors of smoke and electrical odors that were dispatched to?
Let's be real, right? Let's pretend like our chiefs aren't listening. Let's pretend like OSHA isn't listening. Let's pretend like NFPA isn't listening, right? No, they're not. No, they probably are, unfortunately. I'll get a phone call from somebody that's like, hey, you can't tell people that. All right, let's talk reality. When do you put your mask on at a fire? Legit. Answer the question honestly.
When there's a fire.
When I can't breathe anymore.
Right.
Right? Are we going to pretend like that doesn't happen? Are we really going to pretend that? So I'm going in for an odor of smoke. I'm going in for food on the stove. Well, I don't wear my mask for food on the stove. I probably should. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm saying it's what happens. So if I don't have a fire and I have a scooter or I've got a room full of smoke, well, that's
with a light haze.
Right, with a light haze, you're still breathing in HF. You're still breathing in the volatile organic compounds. You're still breathing in the PFO3s. You're still breathing in
just for perspective, because he said that, and HF is hydrofluoric acid, which is probably the boogeyman of hazmat. Just to put it in perspective, this is 1% of your body surface area. If you get HF on 1% of your body surface area at 70%, you are dead, period. Like it is, there's no timeouts, no coming back from that one. So like HF is what's given off by these batteries. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is a level A, like HF is a level A job. There's very few things that we turn around as far as me and Bob are concerned that we're going to say, yeah, we're going to use a level A. Hydrofluoric acid and HF is a level A job. So, we have to educate our operations guys and being like, no, you don't understand this idea and concept that I'm going to put my mask on when I can't breathe. It doesn't work for this situation. It's not like a food on the stove where you're just going to be blowing nasty shit out of your nose for a couple of days and you might have a headache. you have to wear your mask.
Well, guys, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you to put your officer hat on, or like your senior man hat on. If I'm the FNG, the fucking new guy on your shift, or I'm a company level officer who came up, I'm the engine boss or truck boss, and say, hey, you guys understand this hazmat stuff better than I do. What would you tell that FNG, or if you were giving advice to somebody, and which you have already touched on a lot of that, but if I'm the new guy on your shift, what are you going to tell me? Put the long arm on me and tell me what you expect when we go to these calls and how you expect me to respond, because I think the other 99% of the universe is responding to these calls like we're literally, I don't mean this derogatory in any way, but we're responding to these as a bunch of rookies, and we look at the SMEs, the subject matter experts, to give us some guidance. So in the most unvarnished way possible, tell me how if I was coming on your scene, how would you direct me to respond on this?
I would say, do not cut any corners. There are no shortcuts at this point in our learning of this whole hazard. So if everybody's saying meter them and vent them and carry them carefully and do all the steps, there are no shortcuts to be taken at this point. Anybody that gets relaxed and says, you don't need to do that. You don't need to bring this meter. That's the shortcuts that will going to trip us up. So do the full service every time. And then maybe next year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, we'll go, all right, we really didn't have to do that. We don't have to do this anymore.
And hold each other accountable. Like, I've gotten to the point now that we're doing this so much that I started being a little lackadaisical, and my captain had to pull me off to the side the other day, and he's like, listen, he's like, I don't want to critique you. He's like, but you didn't have your mask on. You weren't wearing your gloves. And I was like, you're right, Cap. Like, I can't be preaching this and then not doing it as well. So we have to hold each other accountable, and we have to be okay holding each other accountable and being like, listen, man, I know it sucks. We've just done this 5 times. Throw your mask on. Put your hood on, even though it's August, 95 degrees, and it looks like this battery is burnt to completion. Do it right. Do it right the first time, because God forbid. And he was 100% right. One cell. It takes one cell that didn't burn in the initial burn, and it goes off in my face, and I'm going to be really sorry I wasn't properly protected.
Awesome stuff, like all of it. Like I've told these guys before. I've been looking forward to this since I first reached out, and we were setting this up. There's a little hazmat nerd inside of me, and it is just like jumping for joy right now. So thank you guys. That the whole show was awesome. A lot of really great information. Since we're right at that hour, let's go ahead and go around the horn again. Some final thoughts, some last little nuggets, and then we'll sign off of here. Trevor, why don't you go first? Trevor, you go first.
All right, great. Mike, Salvo, thank you guys so much for coming on tonight and just giving us the straight scoop on everything. And that's what I was really hoping for out of this whole exchange tonight. And what you guys just said in the last few seconds, not only the last hour but the last few seconds, is every time you go on a call, go like you're ready to go to work. And I try to employ that same philosophy, whether we're going on a smells and bells in a high rise. I tell them, nobody invited you for breakfast. You park like you're going to work. You show up like you're going to work each and every time. And Mike, you're absolutely right. And I think that no matter what level we're at, whether you're a 20-year guy, a 2-year guy, a captain, whatever glitter shit you have on your collar, we hold each other accountable. And we put our ego and attitude at the door, because at the end of the day, we're trying to keep each other safe and make sure we go home and we take care of the incident as well as we possibly can. And guess what? We get complacent, we get lazy, we get tired, whatever the case is. So, with that being said, I think you guys have given us some phenomenal information tonight. Looking forward to the feedback that we get from this, because again, most of us don't have the reps and sets that you guys are getting right now. So we're going to look to you for that vital information to pass along to us. And I really appreciate the fact that you're upholding that tradition in the fire service, that you're taking what you learn and saying, hey guys, here's the good, bad, and the ugly of my last call. If it helps you, great. If not, whatever it is. But you guys are doing the deal, man. So thank you again for being on the show and trading some of those nuggets with us and our audience.
Mike Wood, Cuddles, if you will.
Cuddles.
Cuddles. Mike, Salvo, thank you guys so much, man. I took more notes tonight than I have in a long time. So
You can burn that shit.
yeah, I am. I'm gonna actually.
Dude, that dude takes notes.
I'm gonna put my phone on it when I charge it tonight. No, in all seriousness, we're kind of on the frontier with it all, just like you guys said, and we're gonna learn as we go. But it's extremely dangerous. It's extremely deadly. It's a real threat, and the boots in the field need to know everything that we can provide them about it. And that's why I'm sitting here scribbling so much, because there's so much that we know, but there's so much that we don't know. And it all, we have to put it out to them as we get it. It's constantly evolving. It's almost a living plan, so to speak. But, I also heard some really good ideas from you guys for ways to try to get ahead of this. And of course, this comes to mind. I know we talked about the politics involved. I hate that. It drives me bonkers that we have to deal with it. But, we're in the month of fire prevention. And we go around to all the schools, as I'm sure you guys do up there in FDNY. We do it in Baltimore. We do it down here in Ocean City. And, of course, we're always talking about your smoke detectors, and we're always talking about your escape plans for your house. And then we go over the stop, drop, and roll, and we call it a day, right? You put Sparky, the fire dog, in front of them and check that box. This sounds to me like something that needs to go into fire prevention all around the country right away. And this is the school teacher in me of years past coming back out. But change in society begins with the youth. And if we're preaching about all these electronics, how they need to be properly charged, how they need to be properly maintained and taken care of, if we're preaching this in schools, then we are going to see that waterfall effect as it works its way down. So that's just something that popped into my mind, because we're going to a school tomorrow to talk about fire prevention. And this seems to me, this isn't going away anytime soon. And it's only going to get worse. So
I'll give you a quick example. A quick example of civilian pro level response. We had a fire in a hotel. I guess New York City was hosting a drone race. This was a drone operator. He was very well versed with lithium-ion batteries. He was charging his batteries. One of the batteries started catching on fire. He had a fire pouch with him because he was a professional. He understood the dangers. He immediately covered and wrapped the thing in the fire pouch. Fire never extended beyond the pouch. No fire in the hotel room. Saved his other batteries. Good to go. All because he was properly educated.
Yep, that's it. It speaks volumes. And if we can start instilling some of this knowledge in the youth, and it gets taken home to the parents, I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but you have to start chipping away at it somewhere. And knowledge is power, man. But again, Salvo, Mike, a million thank yous. Thank you for all the notes, and thank you for all the nuggets, man. This is something that we'll be peeling away the layers on for a long time. But awesome.
If you got about 7 more hours, we can keep going.
All right, Bobby McGee.
Hey guys, thanks so much for coming on. I'm insanely interested in all this, to be honest with you. I didn't know how much I didn't know until you guys all started talking. So Mike, no longer will I charge my scooter under the Christmas tree next to the can of cooking oil. I'll change my ways. I wanted to give a shout out to a good friend of ours and a good friend of the show, Greggy Temple. He's just accepted a job as a fire chief in, I think, Spring Hill, Tennessee. So the best of luck and congratulations to him. I also really want to thank Wichita Fools, the Wichita Hot organization, Wichita Fire Department, and we did our training at Hutchinson Fire Academy and also their fire school for the fire department. and they were amazing people to work with amazing facilities, and nothing but good things to say about that experience out there. We were rolling out a brand new class, and it couldn't have gone any smoother with their help. And this is great, and we have to have you guys on again. You start figuring out solutions to all this, we'll get you back on again. How about that?
Well, the only way we're going to figure out solutions is if there's a nationwide conversation back and forth, and that's what we've been trying to do. That's what's been happening on our end. We're hearing stories back of people that are doing stuff, what happened, what went right, what went wrong. We've been sharing ours, what went wrong, what went right, and that's the only way we're going to come up, because we can't wait for the government to do something, because even the EPA and OSHA and DOT, they are kind of waiting for us to start putting things down on paper. It's going to be a very long time before anything official comes down.
Yeah. Salvo, you got some final thoughts?
I got one quick thing. Beware the gambler's fallacy. Okay, the gambler's fallacy is if I flip a coin 4 times and it comes up heads every single time, and I go, "Hey, Mike Wood, what's the next one?" You're like, "Dude, it's got to come up tails. It's come up heads every single time." Every time it's 50-50. So don't assume any operation is, "Oh, I've seen this before." This is not fire department. This is batteries. This is hazmat. Everyone's different. So don't fall into the gambler's fallacy. I'll leave you on that one. Thanks for inviting us on. And I had my drink. Thank you.
Yeah, can you hold that bottle up one more time?
I did pretty good tonight.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Not bad.
That's less than a day. I'll finish up tonight.
Proud of you.
That's impressive.
I've been working on that for a while.
Yeah, about an hour.
And you
I noticed your head's a little more red.
Yeah,
I see the beads building up on his forehead.
I'm still articulate, though. I can still enunciate.
Yeah. It's impressive. You're
not putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
All right. Well, thank you again. Cheers, everybody. Stay safe. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Before we go, if you want more from the HazMat Guys, go check out their website, podcasts, shows. They have premium content. The HazmatGuys.com. I tell you, you cannot go wrong with the stuff that they're putting out. It's great stuff. So, again, thank you guys. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you soon.